Hi, this is Megha Joshi, the host of the Boardroom Zen podcast. This show is created for the ambitious business leaders. Are you someone wanting to play big? Want to possess a strong brand and executive presence that makes you belong in every room you walk into? And all of this without putting your personal life on hold? If the answer to those questions is yes, then you are in the right place. In this show, I sit down with best-in-class leaders to distill their wisdom while sharing what helped me stand out as a Fortune 100 executive. So let's get started. Our guest today is an Emmy award-winning C-suite executive who excels at the intersection of technology and business outcomes. Her very impressive journey includes her most recent role as the EVP and Chief Technology Officer at Charter Communications. Prior to that, she held executive positions at Cadent TV and Cablevision. With a career spanning over 25 years, this leader is a trailblazer in the realm of technology, media, and advanced advertising. Beyond her impressive professional accomplishments, her commitment to elevating the awareness of leaders towards a more sustainable and equitable future is truly commendable. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Stephanie Mitchko on the show. Stephanie, welcome.
Thank you so much, Megha. It's so nice to be here. Great to see you.
Likewise, Stephanie. What a privilege to have you here. I have known Stephanie for the past few years. We crossed paths back when we were both at Charter Communications. And I have to say, from the very first meeting I had with Stephanie, I was blown away. The way Stephanie carried herself, her presence, with the ease with which anybody could have and strike up a real conversation with Stephanie, it is unbelievable. And really, Stephanie, you left a mark on me because no matter how much power you had and what your title was, it was just so easy to get to connect with you, right? And I think that's your superpower. So I'm so pleased to have you here.
Well, that is really awesome for you to say. And it just warms my heart because we're going to talk about this throughout this session. But I think it's so important that leaders have those qualities, that people can talk to them, that you can have authentic conversations and make sure that your staff and your projects and people feel safe and seen and understood. So the fact that you said that you felt comfortable coming to see me is really nice, and it's such heartfelt for me. So thank you for that.
Of course. And so, Stephanie, for the benefit of the listeners, could you provide us a quick glimpse into who Stephanie Mitchko really is, and maybe even share a lesser known aspect about yourself?
Well, I wish I could answer that question. Just keeps bringing it up that I'm just a regular person. I know people find that funny when I say that after being in business for so long, but I have so many hobbies. And one of my personality traits is I'm voraciously curious. I want to know how everything works. So what you might not know about me, some people know this and they think I'm crazy, but I love to fix everything. I mean, I take apart my dishwasher, I take apart my washing machines, I 3D print components to fix things around my house. So I'm kind of a wannabe artist, so I do some mosaic work and I have a wood shop. I think this is an interesting thing about me that people might not know is being a technologist and an executive, you're kind of in your mind a lot. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of hands-on. And I find using my hands and making things, gardening. I ride a motorcycle once in a while. All of these things kind of fill up my time. I think I will be very busy for the rest of my life, given so many different interests. And I just love to do things and learn about things that are not necessarily in my wheelhouse. Yeah. That's kind of something about me that some people know, some people don't know.
That is so cool, Stephanie. As you were describing it, you've got so many facets to yourself beyond being a Fortune 100 top executive. And it's just so interesting that over these years, you haven't really given up on your other passions. You've taken a whole person approach to your life.
That is the point. And I think when we get to the guts of this conversation, we're going to come back to that one point.
All right.
That fact is that you don't have to only be an executive. You don't have to only be one type of person in your life. You need to integrate your whole life, like you have, across your family, your career, your interests, and you don't have to sacrifice any of those things. We talk a lot about balance, and I just don't believe in this, where people say you have to balance your home life and your work life. You don't. You have to integrate them in a way that lets you keep your priorities straight and stay engaged in those other things, because that's what enriches yourself and your life.
Very much so, and beautifully said, Stephanie. You mentioned fixing a lot of things around you. I wonder if you fix people too.
I try. I'm not a therapist or anything like that, but I do enjoy working with people. And sometimes, and I was fortunate enough to have people in my career who pointed things out to me, but sometimes it's really valuable for people to hear what's not exactly going right for them and why. It's hard from the inside to see your own stuff. And it's valuable when you have enough comfort in yourself that you could actually hear when somebody gives you that constructive criticism, because you can't fix anybody, right? People work on themselves. They get better. They're only great because they want to be great. But sometimes just giving them that little pointer or showing them something about themselves in a different way is what I've done over the years. I do, as you know, a lot of mentoring in the different cable industry and some women events and things like that. It's really just about helping people see their own path rather than, telling them what to do or how to do it.
Totally. And I love how you said it. And really, feedback and insights that you've mentioned, those are gifts if only people were willing to accept them, right? They're special. So, Stephanie, let's switch gears to a whole different space, right? I was listening to the NVIDIA earnings call last night. They had another blockbuster quarter. And right now, when we look around across organizations, across the tech landscape, it's all about AI and machine learning and whatnot, right? Everything's evolving and integrated with AI. And clearly you are a technologist. You geek out on all things technology. So from your lens, Stephanie, as you look at the ecosystem, at the current landscape of technology, what is important right now?
This is a great question. And I'm going to preamble the question by saying, there have been many major technological advances that have happened in our lifetimes and before our lifetimes that have materially changed the way humans behave, work, integrate, communicate, etc. Just a few of them. I mean, we could say the internet was a massive transmutational technology, right? It changed the way we live our lives, for good and bad. For all the things that it does well, we have the dark side. I've spent quite a bit of time now paying attention to AI. I've done a lot of machine learning in my career. These things are not brand new. But interestingly enough, you're listening to earnings calls about technology chip manufacturers and things like this. And the reason that AI has become such a important technology right now at this time is that compute power and the amount of processing we can do in smaller environments has made it available.
Yeah.
Some of these algorithms you hear about have been around, these models have been around, but they couldn't be trained on huge data sets because of the processing power. So now we have that.
Right.
The other thing we have today is all of this public data. And I can argue every side of this that I don't know that it's really public, but everything on the internet is now being used to train these models. So with the processing power and the availability of data, AI is advancing at a very quick pace. And this is something that leaders have to be really aware of. Now, I don't believe yet in the doomsday scenario, right, that they're going to take over our lives and all this stuff.
Right.
But what is happening that leaders need to be very aware of is that data sets that are being used are moving into functions that used to be controlled by human eyes.
Sure.
Now, I love AI and I love machine learning because, for example, running a network, it's such a complex system that you need these tools. You just need these tools to help service your customers, to help service your network, to make sure that you're moving forward the right way. What I worry about and I want people to really pay attention to is how these data sets are being curated, how are they being used, and what are the implications of using the type of data to train your model. And I'll give you a simple example.
Sure.
There's a whole bunch of technology out there now with models and stuff. And you know, you're in media now. You can go online and look at Adobe stock photos. Let's say you want to create a flyer or a media campaign.
Yeah.
They actually identify the photos that have been generated by an AI. It's not a photograph. It's not a sketch. It's not somebody's work, right? So they'll be generated by AI. The amount of use of ChatGPT, and those of you who haven't used it, okay, but I use it a lot to learn about what AI does. And it's not that smart, but it reduces your workload by, I would say, more than 50%. So if you want to make an outline for your next podcast, you could just go on there and say, this is my topic and this is what I want to talk about. And boom, 10-episode outline gets spit out. It tells you who your guest should be. And then you just have to go and massage that.
Totally.
Those are all interesting and what I think are relatively good uses of AI. My concern, and I think all of our government officials, agencies, people in healthcare, people in weapon systems and defense have to think about is how much automation do we put into systems? Because if you have a machine doing something for you, you kind of have to know what that machine is doing. And right now, you hear this when you hear the leaders, a lot of people from OpenAI and people from different companies, Google, et cetera. The algorithm itself is a black box.
It is.
Even the people who've invented these things don't know exactly how they're going to respond.
Sure.
And that's okay if you're building graphics.
Yeah.
That's not okay if you're making a medical recommendation for a patient or you're controlling a weapon system or giving these types of tools access to the power grid. So I don't want to do the doomsday thing, but those are the things that leaders have to be really aware of. They have to ask all the hard questions. Don't be afraid. If you think, oh, I don't know anything about AI, doesn't matter. Ask the question.
Yeah.
What is this? How is it working? What is the data set that it's using, right? And be really aware. Now, there's been this cyclical hype about AI. It got really hyped up and now it's like so-so and then there'll be more. And just like any other technology, we as humans need to really understand how we work alongside of these tools and also understand what it means to be human in the world of machines. Not a new concept, right? These things have been around.
Totally.
So I just think that it's the next big technology that's going to change the way we work and the way we communicate and the way we think about ourselves.
Yeah.
It's just happening a lot quicker than some of the other technologies in the past.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. And thanks for that great insight. And as you said, it's not new. I mean, we've seen this pattern before with the invention of electricity or the internet and whatnot, right? And I think the insight about having guardrails around the consumption of what AI is producing, that's such a great point that leaders need to be more aware of. And just like anything in life or that's living and breathing or not, there's an ebb and flow to everything. And we'll see in our lifetime how AI shifts the state of affairs. And we're seeing it in a short span of time anyway. And Stephanie, switching gears to another topic, I am, first of all, so stoked about the launch of your upcoming book. And for the listeners, Stephanie's first book ever is coming out next month in September. It's called Mind Skills. And it talks about how leaders can make it to the big leagues and how they can thrive in the big leagues. And this is just such a fascinating theme, Stephanie. And so I'm just curious as to what inspired you to become an author. You put on so many hats in your lifetime. I think you also have a couple of patterns to your name. So I can't believe now you're venturing into this new space. What led you here?
Yeah, that's a great question. And thank you for mentioning it. Yeah, so I co-authored a book with a woman named Linda Bjork. She's the founder of Mindfulness Intelligence. And we met in Stockholm many years ago at a conference, at a women's executive conference that we were both speaking at. And it just turns out that after the conference, we were talking and she told me what she does. She does very similar things to what you're doing. She coaches executives and she does mindfulness training and meditation training. And we've stayed in touch. And she's actually come and done a few seminars and worked with my teams, both at Cadent and Charter. And all along, it's just a weird combination, right? Like most people think about meditation, mindfulness, and whole body, heart, mind connection. They don't equate that with kick-ass technologists working in the Fortune 100
Sure.
at a senior level, right? These things don't really go together, although a lot of leaders are crossing over that divide and experiencing these things. So we had been talking for a couple of years about the work she's doing and the work that I've done. And we just decided that it probably would be a good thing to share our real life experiences and then add the techniques that we've used in those experiences to be successful in whatever success means to you. So in our world, maybe the big leagues should be the Fortune 100, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's just being the CEO of your startup or the vice president of your local PTA. It doesn't matter. But we decided that it would be good to put these things down. So it started as a little project where we just started writing things down. And then over the past year, it turned into a 14-chapter book. And it's filled with interesting stories, real life stories, as well as, because you got a little glimpse, some of the techniques and some of the mind skills. We use mind skills it really means just turning inward, right? Learning about yourself so that you can project a better self to the world and therefore do better things, make better decisions, right? And create the world that you want. That's the good news. Yeah. The bad news is I never really thought I would be an author. English, not my thing. I find it very difficult to write. So it took quite a while, and thank God for good editors.
Hey, you're going to be awesome, Stephanie. And that's who you've been, everything you've touched in your life. So this is going to be no different. And I can feel the passion in your voice for sure as you talk about the upcoming book. And thank you, first of all, for giving me a sneak peek into your book. It was just full of fascinating insights for me. And by far, Stephanie, for me, my most favorite chapter in this book is called Future Orchestrator, where you actually talk about energy management, a topic that most people don't talk about in the corporate ecosystem at all. And so that spoke to me. And then the other piece that really blew my mind was how you debunk some of the prevalent misconceptions, such as the idea of working oneself to death for success and sort of looking at success as a price we have to pay by taking a toll on our minds and bodies in personal lives, right? So I'd love to hear more from you on this idea and how you've challenged this conventional narrative to which most people are so accustomed to.
Yeah. Well, thank you for bringing that up. It is a fun chapter. Just the words when you say future orchestrator, I think it's very empowering. You produce the life you want, right? You create the world around you, and people don't really resonate with that yet. They need to understand that they are the ones, right, that have the power to create these things. But the very specific thing you said, what we try to do in the book, Linda and I talk about this a lot. The idea of time management is a very old concept, right? Time management is about scheduling, is about being somewhere, is about blocking out portions of your day. And when you do time management like that, you get into that realm of I'm busy all the time.
Sure.
But sometimes that's busy for busy's sake. If we flip that on its head, and now I'm not saying forget about time, because you can't book an airline flight if you don't understand what time you're getting on the plane. But if you flip that on its head and really have a position in your own self where I'm going to manage the energy that I put into something, how much I can be present and focused, you see that time collapses. You get a lot more done in less time. You're less stressed out because you can focus. You're not trying to multitask because someone has triple booked you. I know this very well. I look at my calendar and it's like 5 things at the same time. Like,
right.
We have technology to handle that. Why is that even like that? What we try to talk about here is really understanding how you bring your energy to a situation. And when you do it from a place of calm and centered mind, we call it right mind, you know this. When you come to something with a calm and centered mind, you focus on the issue at hand, you're comfortable listening to others, you solve your problem, and then you might look at your watch and say, guess what? Only 15 minutes went by. Everyone could have the 45 minutes back, right?
Yeah.
So I think you're so right. It's unconventional. a lot of leaders and a lot of organizations are still stuck in that we have to use our time. And unfortunately, busy is not the thing to put your badge on. Just because when people say I'm really busy, this makes me nervous as a leader. When my staff is saying, well, I'm way too busy. Well, if you're too busy to hire the person you need to help you not be busy, that's a problem.
Totally.
If you're busy to focus on the higher level challenges, that's a problem. If you're too busy to focus, that's a problem. So the idea of being busy is, from our perspective, and we write about this in the book, is it's really just a noisy way of not dealing with the things that you actually have to deal with. And I think a lot of leaders, one of the tactics I used when I was running a big team at Charter was I asked my team to take 20% of their calendar and block it every day just for thinking, reading, researching, opening their minds to new ideas, maybe strategizing about how to better support their own teams.
Yeah.
But if you're booked from 8 a.m. to 5:30, 6:30, which I hear all the time,
it's enormous.
It makes me nervous because I don't believe people can make great decisions and take great action from a place of noisy, busy confusion.
Yeah.
So yes, we take the idea of time, we flip it on its head, and we try to get people to understand how to use their energy and manage their energy rather than every minute of every day. And when you do that, you can actually spend some time thinking about and feeling where it is that you want to be as a leader, as a person, as a mom, as a friend, and creating those situations so that you could live in that space and be more integrated in your whole life.
Yeah, I love it. I love it, Stephanie. And what you alluded to is so powerful, especially the way you've led your teams, allowing them to carve out time for thinking, for strategizing, for nurturing their own minds and even their bodies. I mean, I think that's priceless. And what I also heard you say in between is it's important for us leaders to allow us to get in a state of flow, where ideas flow through us, right? As opposed to forcing a solution or forcing an idea when it's not ready, right? It's just operating in a more effortless way is what I heard you say.
I'll just bring up a little more content from the book. I don't want to give too much away, but we do have a whole chapter on just this. And it's about people thinking that things happen to them and transitioning into things are happening for them. And then ultimately, because you're a very advanced leader, things happen through you. So there is this sense of when you understand, and look, I'm a technologist, so I could be pretty black and white, and I'm not all frou-frou about this stuff. Intrinsically, when you're pushing something in a way that's pushing back, you're pushing so hard, but it's not coming your way, but things aren't moving out of your way, your obstacles are still there. You know the energy is just pushing back.
Yeah.
When you let things happen more in a flow, which you hear about all the time, there's a lot of people who write about this idea, but it's really about just understanding where you are and not forcing things all the time. And we have a nice chapter on techniques and things you can do and real life examples, like when it works and when it doesn't.
Yeah.
Because I think it's really important to give people tools where they can say, okay, this is 1 foot on the ground. It's not just all in our heads, right? You actually have to take action. I hate to say it because I do meditate and I love my calm time, but that's not where action happens, right? You have to take what you learn and then bring that to fruition. So you are, like I said, a little bit more advanced, I think. And you're right. The world happens through you. And if you get that settled in yourself, things will come to you, which also sounds counterintuitive. Things will come to you in your life. And sometimes you think about, oh, I really would like this. And all of a sudden the next day someone calls you and says, hey, Mako, we want you to do this. And you're like, wait a second, what the heck?
Exactly.
There's a lot of that in the book, but it is tied to real life examples. We're not just going to talk about these things. And that's what I hope is going to be useful for people, because Linda's background is so different than my background. And it's really this unconventional partnership that we have that brings the beauty out, where we can talk about traditional hardcore leadership and even technology leadership, which is a whole different animal, and making sure that you're taking care of people.
Yeah.
and you're taking care of yourself as well.
Yeah. And that's the piece that I loved about this book of yours, Stephanie, is that it has real stories from the boardrooms of the power plays and how we lead. A lot of your stories is what I saw there. And then real meaningful techniques that allows people and leaders to build a toolkit. It's not just stories and fluff. It's also the combination of stories and the right tools that allows people to be successful in those positions.
Yeah. And I will say all through the book, we talk about success and being in the big leagues. And I don't want to give away, there's some really good concepts here, but it really is the big leagues or whatever you think success is what it is. And I really like to tell people, don't look at people like me and go, I want to be just like you, because you don't know the path that I've been on. You don't know my struggles, right? My suffering, my whatever. Everybody has those things. The messaging there is be aware of that. Everyone has something going on. They might look wonderful. Look at that person. They have the great job and they have a car and whatever. That's not what it's about, right? And you'll never find real success if you're always comparing to what other people are doing. And I talk a lot about that. That's been my personal agenda and my belief for a very long time. So people like you who know me, I kind of just plow along. Like, so why are you writing a book? I'm like, I don't know. It seems like a fun thing to do. And I don't really care at this point, is that something I should be doing? I don't limit myself. I'm very curious. And I've learned so much about writing a book, which I do. It's not easy. I think it's important to let people find what is their success.
Totally. Yeah, yeah. And I see you following your path and purpose. And I think that's what lends you so much courage to go in different directions without having to worry about external validation or what someone or somebody's going to say, right? Love it.
I like the word courage. Yeah. And sometimes I call it stupidity, but yeah, I'm a big believer in just do stuff. And if you do it well, great. And if you fail at it, that's great too, because you learn so much. And now the fact that you brought that up, you yourself have taken a personal path, right? You've changed your career to take on a new path as well.
I have.
You know a lot about this.
I do, yes. And what I'd like to share here, Stephanie, and I think I've only mentioned this to you in the passing once, is you were one of the top two executives that had so much influence in my own decision to move away from a traditional corporate job and follow my calling and go all in and double down on myself and what lit me up from the inside. I mean, you really changed the game for me. And I still remember the conversation we had, Stephanie, a few years ago where we were sitting in your fancy top floor office overlooking the water. And I asked you, looking back at your career trajectory, if there was one thing that you would want to change. And you paused for a second. And then I loved the honesty in your voice. And you said, actually, yes, I would. If I could go back again in time, I would actually quit one of the roles or companies that I'd worked for and given way too much of my life energy. I would move out of that role sooner, at least 5 years sooner. And from that very conversation and your honesty, and then how your life evolved from that point on, Stephanie, I mean, you went on to another provider, Cadent TV, and you rose up the ranks. You became the CTO and the COO. You turned the company around, and that led you to other bigger, better things, and the whole universe opened up for you. And so I love the courage, and it truly inspired me to follow my calling, because I could have been comfortable in that role for many years. I was doing well, but it wasn't something that was lighting me up from the inside. So I think you had a big role to play in my own trajectory and success.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for that. I am just humbled and honored to have been able to have those conversations with you. So thank you. And I will say something that will also sound very odd. Success is not a good teacher. Well, you just said, I'm successful. I have a great job. I'm making money. I go to work. I have a nice family. So guess what? You're not really pushing yourself because you're successful. right? And when I left the job that I knew I probably should have left earlier, and look, I'm very fortunate to have wonderful experiences throughout my career. But I said to myself, I want to do something different that scares I'll say the word, that scares the shit out of me. Right. And that was my experience with Cadence. Smaller company. There was a lot to do there. It was very high pressure, but it was a beautiful environment. It was a transformational environment.
Right.
So being able to notice that in yourself without wasting years and years, you can't get them back, right? You can't get those years back.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I regret anything because I've had everything to your point has led to the next thing, but pay attention. And I'm happy for you that you really listen to yourself, right?
Okay.
And got to where you want to be. And now you're flourishing in your new venture. So it's really important. Thank you so much for that. I just feel I'm not going to cry, but I appreciate that you said that.
No, but thank you. Thank you for leaving a mark on my life trajectory. It has meant a lot. And it's been a great conversation, Stephanie, so far, but we are getting towards the end of our conversation. But before we wrap up, is there any piece of advice you'd like to share with those wanting to make it to the big leagues and thrive there?
Oh, yes. There's really one piece of advice, and there's lots more in the book. But the one thing I will say is, as you move up in your career, the mistake that you can make is that you have to know more stuff. You have to be a subject matter expert. You have to know everything. And although it's important to understand what you're working on and what the people you lead are working on, what's more important is that you know yourself and that you can bring your authentic self to the path of moving up. And for me personally, I didn't get that message till way deep in my career that relationships matter. I don't care how much AI there is. Relationships matter. How you interact with people, how you communicate, how you show up, and how you treat everyone around you is really important. Sometimes it's really hard to do when you're climbing and you're trying to move up and up. It's a little bit, it could be very cutthroat, but I would encourage everyone to get an abundance mindset. There is enough success. There's enough space. There's enough positions. There's enough money to go around. So don't compete with everyone else. Compete with yourself.
And amen to that. What great pieces of wisdom that you've shared here. So Stephanie, it's been an absolute delight having you on this show. And thank you for making time for us. It's been wonderful.
Of course. Thank you for having me. Wonderful conversation.
There is no better time than now to stop playing small and tap into your zone of genius. With a Boardroom Zen executive coach by your side, experience the game-changing transformation, both internally and externally. Find out more on boardroomzen.com. And thank you for listening to my show. It means so much to me. I'd love for you to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite listening platform. More power to you, and hope to see you soon.